Anybody wants to go or I start?
Mm, I can give a short recap, whatever
Yep.
I
Yeah,
remember.
whatever. Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead, please.
Um, so we started with the prayer which has a summary of Bhagavad Gita, Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam,
Yeah,
and then uh, then we go on to learn that Sarva Upanishado Gavo,
right.
and then we learned about the misconceptions of the what are the misconceptions related to the Bhagavad Gita,
Right.
and also is like Sanjay was giving the live narration or what was that,
Yeah,
and we also studied about the different ashrams of life,
yes.
brahmacharya ashram, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa. And
Right.
also we see studied the varna system.
Varna
Yes,
system. Correct.
yes.
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thanks for summarizing. So yes, primarily this is what. So we saw the four Purusharthas also, and then we looked at the uniqueness of Bhagavad Gita, what is the importance of studying, and why a person with clear intellect should study the Bhagavad Gita. So these are the couple of things that we saw. So this was like building of the base, right? And now let's begin with the session two. Okay, so now the road to Kurukshetra, right? So, to really understand the essence of Bhagavad Gita, it's important to understand, what is the background, why everything landed into the Battle of Kurukshetra, right? What was the history? So, just a brief on that. So, how the Mahabharata war began. So, the story starts from the King Shantanu, who actually established the Kuru lineage, right? The Kaurava side of it. From there, these Pandavas and Kauravas, right? So the sons of Pandus and sons of Dhritarashtra. So these two streams started from there. And from where the seats actually started, the first succession dispute. So Dhritarashtra was blind. So though he was an elder, he was not incarnated as the king at that particular point of time. Instead of him, the younger son Pandu was made the king. And that is where the Dhritarashtra's ego got hurt and he started moving into the negative direction. Jealousy and all that started building up from there. And then on top of that, when Pandu died suddenly, then again it was a time to decide on the next succession, which was between the Yudhishthir, who was the elder one, and then the Duryodhan. So again, the Yudhishthir was chosen and Duryodhan was sidelined. So this was the second seeding, basically, right? And then Duryodhan again went into the same mode as that of Dhritarashtra, too much into the egoistic side, jealousy, and all that. And then gradually that rivalry intensified. And all of them took the teachings under Guru Dronacharya. And Pandavas excelled in all the areas, be it character, be it leadership, warfare, everything. So that actually led to multiplication of that rivalry between them. So Duryodhana was not able to defeat them in any of the things, right? So then by any hook and crook, he wanted to dethrone them. Multiple times he tried them to be killed, but he was not successful. And then finally the famous dice game came, right? So wherein they lost, Pandavas lost that dice game. One by one, Yudhishthir lost each and everything, his kingdom, his own brothers, and finally Draupadi also. And then they were exiled from there. And that Draupadi Chirharan also happened at that point of time, which was again a trigger point for the Mahabharata for this battle. So this is just a brief, and now again, that so things didn't stop here. Even during the exile, also the Kauravas, because they were still afraid that whenever Pandavas come back, they are going to again reclaim the throne. So even during the exile also, they tried to kill them again and again and again and again, but every attempt was unsuccessful. In one of the attempt, what happened was Kauravas, Duryodhan particularly, they met another army of the Gandharva king and about to be killed by them. But at that point of time, Arjuna and Pandavas, they came forward and they saved the Duryodhana, despite knowing that, he is there to kill them. Suppose that Duryodhana kind of went into an isolation and sort of shown the sign of recovery. But then again, he was pulled back, particularly by Uncle Shakuni, his mama, and Karna, and all these people. And again, he was brought back into the same path of wickedness. So, if you look at, I mean, in my opinion, this Shakuni's role is a very key role here, right? He always, whenever Dhritarashtra or Duryodhan moved towards a quite sort of reconciliation, he always put the fire back into that. So even when they came back after the exile, when Pandavas came back, they tried to make a lot of peace treaties, but everything went for vain. Even Duryodhana didn't agree to give them just the 5 villages. And he said that even I will not give a tip of the needle, land equal to the tip of the needle. And with that, Mahabharata war became unavoidable. So Sri Krishna also came into picture. He also tried all the means to avoid that. But then finally, he also realized that, nothing can happen. It has to go through the entire cycle of the war to restore the dharma, right? So this is just the background of that. And just before the start of the war, both Arjuna and Duryodhana went to Krishna to seek his help, to seek his blessings. So Krishna saw Arjuna first. So he asked him to, ask what exactly he is looking for. So Arjuna just asked, I just need you. I don't need your army. I just need you to be my side. You just be my charioteer. So Duryodhan got very happy because he was afraid that he will ask for the entire army of the Krishna. But then he became happy after listening to Arjuna's choice. And he happily accepted the entire army of Krishna. Right. So, and this is another Arjuna and Krishna. They have had a very huge, exceptional friendship, right? There were multiple examples of that. Arjuna married to the Krishna's sister Subhadra. He agreed to be his charioteer. He spent sleepless night on the 13th day when Abhimanyu was killed in the Chakravyuh, right? 13th day of the Mahabharata. So he spent sleepless night there and all that. So we'll see, currently it is like the friendship between these two and how it gradually transforms into a Guru Shishya kind of relationship ultimately, starting from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So now on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, even the war actually started. Arjuna wanted to see who all are there on the opposite side, right? So he asked Krishna to put the chariot somewhere in front of the Kauravas army, and Krishna was also very. So he put the charioteer just in front of the Bhishma, Drona, these people. He could have placed the charioteer anywhere, but he just put the charioteer in front of them. And just after looking at them, so he realized that my grandfather, my relatives, my friends, my gurus, all are there on the other side. And he became awestruck. So he started getting into the grief, he started getting into the moha and all that. And in Gandiva, his dhanush, his bow, that slipped from his hands, and he said that I'm not going to fight. Right? And with that, he actually gave up. And that is the point where Lord Krishna began the divine dialogue, Bhagavad Gita. Right? So the Mahabharata war was not merely a battle for a kingdom. It was the culmination of decades of jealousy, ambition, injustice, and failed peace effort. And the Bhagavad Gita begins at the moment when this outer conflict awakens Arjuna's inner conflict. Right? So the moment Arjuna saw the all his relatives and all, an inner conflict is started within him. Right? So that is the starting point. Now let's see what lies next. Okay. Now this is just the on the structure side of the Bhagavad Gita. So we have this entire Mahabharata that is of 18 chapters. Out of this, Bhishma Parva, which is the sixth chapter of Mahabharata. So Bhagavad Gita is part of this sixth chapter. Right? So you can just remember this name, Bhishma Parva, sixth chapter. It could be a 2 marks question. And just a brief on this, Mahabharata, it is one of the two famous Itihasa besides the Ramayana and by far the longest epic on the planet. And it is a story of Kuru dynasty, almost 5 to 6 generation with a complete focus on Arjuna's, Duryodhana's generation. It has multiple other historical record also because Vyasa recorded multiple stories within that. And it contains not only Bhagavad Gita, but a lot of other scriptural plus other political, economical sciences related texts as well. So one of those famous one is Vishnu Sahasranama, that is also part of it. Sanat Sujatya, this is a dialogue between Dhritarashtra and sage Sanat Sujaya. Viduraniti, which is the political science, that is also part of this. So these are just few examples. So this is just about the Mahabharata, sixth chapter, Bhishma Parva, that contains the Bhagavad Gita. And now let's see the structure of Bhagavad Gita itself. So Bhagavad Gita, again, it contains 18 chapters, each overall totaling to 700 verses. Right? Each chapter has different verses, totaling to 700 verses. Total 18 chapters, and each chapter is called a particular yoga, starting with Arjuna Vishad Yoga, right? So, because he was into complete grief at that point of time, so that's why this Vishad word is there. Then it starts with subsequent Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, and all. Right? So, all these chapters we will see as we move forward. I'll not spend time on this at present. And and at a high level, many commentators and these things, they divide the entire text into generally 3 parts. The first, Pratham Shatkam, which is chapter 1 to 6, that is primarily said as Karma Yoga. I mean, though Karma Yoga is written here, but you will find that Jnana Yoga is part of it, Dhyana Yoga is also part of it, and but major emphasis on Karma Yoga, right? So it has a mixture of all Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga. Then Madhyam Shatakam, which is the middle part of it, middle 6 chapters, 7 to 12, that primarily focuses on Bhakti Yoga. So that will again have a flavor of Jnana Yoga, but prime focus is Bhakti Yoga. Then the last Shatkam, Antim Shatkam, the last 6 chapter, 13 to 18, is mostly focused on the Jnana Yoga, right? The gunas and all those things are covered here. And so Bhagavad Gita, that is also called, so it is a reiteration of the teachings of Shruti. So Vedas, which are known as the Shruti text. So it is a reiteration of that by sage Vyasa. Tadidam Gita Shastram Samast Vedarth Sar Sangraha Bhutam. The Bhagavad Gita is the concise essence of the entire meaning of the Vedas that we saw in the last session also. And in general, the first chapter is basically the background. So it's like, publishing the casting casting of a movie is coming here. Just the initial introduction part, how the entire thing is placed, what is the background. Then chapter 2 again sort of gives the entire summary initially, the Jnana Yoga, the Bhakti Yoga, not Bhakti Yoga precisely, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga and all that. Then 3 to 17 is elaboration on different topics. And finally, 18th chapter, which is the Moksha Shastra, Moksha Yoga. That is again summarizes all the topics which Sri Krishna has covered during the entire journey, right? So this is the complete structure at a very high level. So I'll just take a pause. Any question till now? So I'll take that as no, and I'll move forward. My voice is clear, flow is clear. Okay. Now this is one famous quote by Swami Vivekananda. So four paths, one destination, moksha. Different paths leading to the same end objective, that is moksha. What Swami Vivekananda ji said, it's a very famous quote and very inspiring. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within us by controlling nature, either external or internal, right? So it's in a way it is saying that we all are capable, we all have immense capabilities. We just have to dig out that capability using all our external or internal means. Do this either by work, which is karma yoga, nishkam karma, or worship, which is bhakti yoga, devotion, or psychic control, which is Raja Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and all that. So mental control, or philosophy, the Gyan Yoga, increase your intellectual side through scriptures, through Guru's guidance, and all that. So by any one of these, or combination of these, or all of these, right? So you can use permutation and combination to take out the hidden capability within you. Okay? So very strong, very powerful quote. Now, with this background, so before we jump into the first chapter, we'll just briefly take a look at these four streams: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raj Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and then we'll move to the chapter one. So, again, the four paths, one destination. So, we'll start with Karma Yoga. So, Karma, one word, and then Yoga, second term, right? So, Karma meaning the right action, the discrimination between right and wrong action, and choosing the right path. That is the Karma side of it. And how exactly to do that, all that is karma. And then yoga, the right attitude. What is the attitude that we should have while working? So that is karma yoga, right? So if you look at the karma right action path, there are different karmas which are defined by Sri Krishna in the journey of Bhagavad Gita. So we'll see it in the details in towards the second chapter, third chapter, fourth chapter. There's just a glance here. So, Vihit karma or the Sattvic karma, which is prescribed by the scriptures, right? So, with the general direction is that it gives benefit to a lot of people. It is not a self-centered action that we are doing, right? That's the premise of it. And one key aspect here is around the Panch Mahayagya. Panch Mahayagya, which is giving and expressing the gratitude to devas, to pitras, to Brahma in the sense our sages, our gurus, to all our fellow beings, and the bhuta, which is all trees, rivers, entire environment, basically, right? Starting with deva, which is the starting point of our creation, then pitra, then our gurus, then manushya, bhuta, all five entities which are useful or helpful in one part or the other part of our life. And then reduce the rajasika or the kamic karma, the work which is driven by intense desires, for which there are limited beneficiaries. So whatever we are doing for our own benefit. That's the idea here of kamic karma. So the idea is to reduce that, reduce this kamic karma and increase this vihit or sattvic karma. And avoid the third category, which is the nishiddha karma, tamasic karma, which is prohibited by the scriptures or by the law or by the social rules, etc. So, at a high level, these three categories. Right? We will see some more categories in the subsequent chapter. And about the attitude, what should be the attitude? Attitude towards work. So it should be the Ishwar Arpana Buddhi while doing the action. So whatever we are doing, our attitude should be of a non-doer. The thought should be that I am just an instrument in the hands of God. And with that attitude, and whatever I'm doing, I'm just surrendering everything to the God, Ishvara. Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. That should be the attitude while doing that action. And if we do the action with that attitude, automatically we will have the lesser anxiety and all. We will be able to better focus on the work. And then when it comes to the results, we should have a Ishwar Prasad Bhavana. What does that mean? Whatever you're getting as the result of your actions, just accept that as the prasada. Just as you go to the temple, whatever you are getting there, maybe just a small, just a water or a small mishri, whatever, one piece, two piece, and you accept that with very grace, very happily, and consume that. Same way, accept the results just like that. Because what is in our hands is doing the action, all the efforts. But beyond that, the results are driven by a lot of other factors also. So what we are doing, our action may constitute just 25% of the result, but rest 75% comes from other environmental factors, other people with whom we are interacting, the grace of the gurus, and a lot of other things, right? So that all we should keep it in mind. And if we work with these two things, it can change the quality of action and the quality of response. And what happens with that? It leads to an equanimous mount, chitta shuddhi. It reduces raga, so strong attachment or strong aversion, raga dvesha. Because actions are no more decided by likes or dislikes, rather than they are chosen based on duty. Right? So we know what is right, what is wrong, and then with that understanding and with these attitudes, Ishwar Arpana Buddhi and Ishwar Prasad Bhavana, we are doing the actions. Right? Now moving to the next, the second one is Dhyana Yoga or Upasana Yoga. So the word that is given is Saguna Ishwara Dhyana, but it can be like any positive thing on which we want to focus. And this is needed along with the Karma Yoga as a preparation for Jnana Yoga. So basically, four aspects are being talked about. One is the relaxation, because if you are just continuously working, then it leads to an increase in the stress level and all that. So we need to have that relaxation techniques in place, breath focus, all those techniques which are given by the yogic philosophies. Then focusing. So there are different aspects: manasa puja, mansa pranayana, and mansa japa. So it's like focusing on, we are doing all the puja, the rituals that we do, we are doing that in a mental way without actually performing that physically. We are just mentally performing that those rituals steps and engaging the mind in that. So in a way that mind becomes focused. Mentally chanting some bhajan or kirtan or some shlokas and all that, or if there is a particular bij mantra or something that is given to us by a guru, like Om Namo Shivaya or anything, then just a mental repetition of that mantra japa. So that helps in focusing of the mind. And then focusing, learning to expand the mind to visualize the totality. Right. So first we have focused, and then we expand our awareness, expand our consciousness. It's like starting from a Saguna Ishvara with a particular attribute, to the Vishwarupa Darshan, as Bhagwan Krishna also gave that in, I think, 11th chapter, from a specific attribute of Bhagwan Ishvara, moving our focus, realizing that Vishwarupa of the Ishvara. And then value system, the inner transformation by changing thought patterns. It's like yama, niyamas, and all that. Ahimsa, satya, stay. all those value systems which are being talked about. Many scriptures, be it Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Hatha Yoga, or even we will see that in the Bhagavad Gita also in the 16th chapter. So this also talks about all that there. And why it is important to channelize our thoughts? Because as we think, we become, right? Thoughts leads to our words becomes our actions become our habits become our character, and finally that character become our destiny or the sanskara, right? So something that we are, doing again and again, that ultimately leads to generation of sanskaras, karma, and then all that birth, rebirth cycle. So what is the benefit of this? It vikshepa, so it reduces the fluctuations of the mind, chitta vrittis. Contemplation on subtle objects makes the mind also subtle, so it is able to focus better, right? So we saw karma yoga, we saw dhyana yoga, and now third stream is jnana yoga, which is the means for knowledge. So what is the process of jnana yoga? First, you hear the shravanam part, right? First, you hear or read something on your own or from your gurus. Then you do a mananam, revisit all those listening again and again for doubt removal, right? So increase the depth of understanding. And then once those gross level doubts are removed, then you go further deeper, you meditate on those subjects, and then actually imbibe those teachings in your lifestyle. So that is Nidhi Dhyasanam, right? So benefits of are self-knowledge and vision of oneness. Because the moment you start developing that awareness that the our true nature is something which is covered by Maya, by the ignorance. Through Jnana Yoga, you start getting that differentiation: what is real, what is unreal, Sat, Asat, and all that, and that starts giving you a vision of oneness. Right. So that's the benefit here of Jnana Yoga. And then finally, Bhakti Yoga, which is selfless love for divine. And this is something we have to have across all the streams, right? Be it Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Because if we don't have that devotional aspect built in, then all these aspects will remain incomplete and we will not get the true benefit out of these. Right? So here it's like we are considering ourselves just as an instrument of the Ishvara and working with that. So Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, all three are soaked in bhakti and are not possible without. So here, this is helping us to channelize our emotions. Right? So there is no forceful channelization or suppression of the emotions. Rather, it helps to have a natural channelization. The moment you get completely soaked into bhakti, or for that matter, any other thing, your emotions automatically start getting sublimated, channelized to a different direction, positive direction. Right. So this is the gist of the four streams of yoga. So these things will keep coming as we progress because entire journey of 18th chapter is woven around these four. Right. So that's why it was important to cover. Right. So we, in a way, now this completes the background. So we saw all that importance of studying, why should be studying, the essence of it, the structure of it, all that, the Varna system, the Ashrama system, the Purusharthas, and finally these four paths of yoga. So this completes the base. And if I just speak about from the exam, I'm not only from the understanding perspective, but from the exam perspective also, generally there are questions around it. So I would say 10% of the questions may be from this, whatever we have covered till now. Right? Any question till now? No question?
Yeah, I just
Yes.
want to understand a little more on the expansion that you're talking about on the four types.
Okay.
Relaxation, I understand. Focus, I
Yeah.
understand. I am also able to understand the inner transformation, but that expansion part is something that I'm
Expect.
not clear.
Yeah, that is something that. So it's like in many of the meditation techniques also we use this. So what we do is generally first we ask people to focus on a light, let's say at their eyebrow center, right? We ask them, just imagine a light at either at your eyebrow center or heart center and all that. So once that tendency gets deepened, that yeah, they are actually able to focus after a certain time, then we ask them to expand that light, the aura of that light or the brightness of that light. So first you expand that, let's say I'm sitting in this room, expand that light into this room. You imagine that entire light is filling this room, then gradually expanding, and then filling the entire universe. Right?
So
So that's the
something
idea.
similar to what we do in MIRT and all that.
Correct, exactly same.
Okay, okay,
It's
okay.
like we are merging our individual consciousness with the universal consciousness. That's it. That's the idea. So giving away our individual identity. Right? And yeah, in this slide, so as we saw Jnana Yoga, so there are certain qualifications which should be met before the deeper Jnana Yoga study. So if you look at Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga also to some extent, as such, there are no prerequisites. Right? Anybody can start on the Bhakti Yoga path, Karma Yoga path with just slight understanding. But then for Jnana Yoga, because this is like going deeper into the scriptures and all, it's talking about the ignorance and this true nature of the self and all that. So there are four things. So Vivek, which is the discrimination, that means the ability to discriminate or differentiate between the eternal and transient, or the Nitya and Anitya. Then Vairagya, which is dispassion. So this Vairagya is not that, you just leave everything and then go to the forest. It's not that Vairagya. It's like not having the too much of an attachment or aversions. So living in the world, but then without having this raga dvesha, living with that attitude. So that is vairagya. And then third one is the mumukshitvam, which is the intense desire for freedom, intense desire for the knowledge, to be free from the bondage, right? And this is the point where the spiritual freedom becomes the foremost and uncompromising priority in life. And that is where this Gyan Yoga journey starts. And finally, the Shat Sampati, the six-folded discipline. Shama is about the mastery of the mind. We are channelizing the thoughts, which is generally, the mind is keeps on running. It's monkey mind running here and there. So we have to control that channel, not the forceful suppression, but channelizing those thoughts in a particular way through karma yoga, japa, and all that. Second one is Dhamma. So sometimes it gets confusing. So Dhamma is more towards the senses, controlling the senses. So senses have a tendency generally to run behind their sense objects. So we have to somehow turn those sense objects inwards, bring them in the control of mind to go inwards. So first we are controlling the mind, and if the mind itself is controlled, then senses also start following the mind. It's like honeybee, right? So senses also start following that. And then uparati, which is the reduction of extroverted activity. It's like mind your own business. It's that kind of thing. So unnecessarily not getting involved into multiple different things which are not conducive to the path that you have. It may be a spiritual path. It may be something that you want to attain at a personal level, corporate level, whatever it is. Right? So you have to ensure that you are focused on your goal and not getting involved in the unnecessary activities, not spending time on unnecessary activities which are in a way distraction or consuming your time. Then titiksha, endurance. So if you want to move forward in a particular direction, then obviously you have to do some tapas. You have to give away certain things. There will be certain hurdles in the path, right? So you have to overcome all those hurdles, bear that brunt, and then with all that, continue to progress. Sometimes you may fail also in between. There may be intermittent failures, but then you have to accept those failures with courage and then continue to move with full endurance. Fifth one is Shraddha, which is the trust on Guru, and it is not a blind faith, right? So this is that kind of a trust. So have faith, but have the questions also, the constructive questions, not just for the sake of asking the questions, but first try to understand the subject, whatever is being taught. And then if there are some real questions, fundamental question, then get those resolved, right? So that's the trust. Have complete faith on Guru's scripture or the path that you have chosen, right? Because if you don't have the trust on your goal, the path, then obviously you will not be able to attain that. And then finally, samadhanam, which is the focusing capacity on the goal. So just, forget about all other things and focus on the particular goal. Right. So if we take a practical example of, let's say, multiple cricket player or football player and all, irrespective of, whatever success they have achieved, they have to have that practice, minimum practice in their life. The moment they stop that, or they get distracted by the fame and name, their downfall starts. So that's the thing here. So Vivek, Vairagya, Mumukshuttam, and Shata Sampati, that's the prerequisite for Jnana Yoga. Now, ultimately, we move into the chapter 1, which is the Arjun Vishad Yoga. And that is the evolution of the Arjun's inner conflict. And we all can correlate with our own inner conflicts also at some point of time. We would have gone through this, right? We want to do something, but then because of whatever reason, we get overwhelmed with emotions or some different attachments and all that, and we are not able to move forward. And we finally say, no, I can't do it. But at that point of time, we need some guidance or some motivational push to again get going on that path. So that is what is happening with Arjuna here. So this initial part, we have already seen. The background is Kurukshetra. Everybody has gathered there and conches are blown. Arjuna's emotional collapse, conflict between dharma and attachment. So he should have been driven by the dharma, but then he got carried away by the attachment with his relatives, gurus, and the beginning of the spiritual inquiry. Arjuna surrendered to Krishna seeking guidance. Now, what is the structure of this? It is, divided in different parts just for the understanding purpose. The initial part is all about the battlefield. So first, it starts with Dhritarashtra asking Sanjaya, to describe, explain me what is happening on the field, because he was very anxious. Somewhere deep we will see all that mindset also, Dhritarashtra's mindset, Duryodhan's mindset, Sanjaya's mindset, and all. So somewhere deep within, he was aware that Kaurava's side are not going to win, and with that anxiety, he starts asking Sanjay to describe what is happening on the battlefield. And on the battlefield, the camera moves to Duryodhana. He was again, outwardly, he was looking quite confident, but internally, he was also kind of afraid that, we are not going to win. So with that anxiety, he went to Dronacharya, his guru, and their Senapati also, the leader of Kauravas, to discuss about the strength and weaknesses of both the sides. Right? So this is on the Kaurava side, and then the conches, the shanks, those are blown. So there are different names given to the conches of Arjuna, to Shri Krishna, to every. So they are different. They have a different significance also altogether. So that we don't need to cover. There are multiple shlokas covering that, so but we are not going to into those details. And with that blow of conscious, that signaled the beginning of the war. So with that, that external battlefield is ready, right? Everything is set. People have gathered, whatever could have been avoided to avoid that war, everything was done, but nothing has. And now the armies are there, standing in front of each other and about to. So external battlefield is ready, but it looks like inner battlefield was not ready, right? So that is what we will see now. So now the camera moves to the Pandava side, right? So now let's see what Arjuna is doing. So he also asks Krishna to put the chariot in front of the Kaurava's army because he wanted to see, who all are there in the opposite. He was aware who all are there, but he wanted to take a look. So Krishna places that chariot again, as I said in the beginning, intentionally in front of the key gurus and Bhishma. And that triggers the internal battle within the Arjuna. Right? So that's the second part. So which is the beginning of the external observation. It's like observing our negative tendencies. We can correlate it with that. So we'll do that correlation in the subsequent slide. Right. So you just for now imagine that the Kaurava and Pandava are like two sides of us only. One side represents our spiritual goal and all that, the positive side, and the other side represents the negative side of it, the tendencies which take us away from our goals. Right? So Arjuna, in a way, is observing all those negative tendencies here in the second part. And in the third part, with that observation in the second part, the raga, the attachment triggers in Arjuna's mind after seeing all his relatives, gurus, and he sees all of them as my people, my family. So he forgets that, all these people are responsible for all that adharma that has happened, particularly that Draupadi episode. Right? That was the biggest crime that these people had done. But he forgets all that. He just sees my people, my family. He was completely carried away by the tsunami of his emotional attachment. And that clouded his perception. Right? So this happened in the third part. Then let's see the fourth part. And that attachment led to the grief, the shoka. So just see the chain of events, right? How the things are unfolding. Now, because of the attachment, Arjuna imagines their destruction. Right? So he imagines that if we go ahead with the war, everybody will be killed. Right? And then with that thought, he gets into the deep shoka, grief. And the one shloka gives a very beautiful description of anxiety, right? Probably none of the best psychological text also can give it. So it encompasses all the symptoms. Whenever we are anxious, we have all these things, right? Our body starts trembling, our mouth starts getting dry. Gandhi was sleeping. I mean, he had that dhanush. We will not have the dhanush, but we will have something else to correlate it to. Our body starts shaking, burning sensation, our burning sensation, the breath starts moving very fast. We are not able to stand properly. Mind starts reeling. All that, typical symptoms of anxiety. So Arjuna went through this anxiety attack after seeing all this. And he concludes, I do not desire victory. He simply forgets the adharma side. And then in the fifth part, the shoka ultimately leads to moha, delusion. So there may be a question, describe the three stages of Arjuna that he went through in the first chapter. So raga, which is attachment, shoka, which is the grief, and the moha, which is the delusion. These three stages he went through in the first chapter before putting his weapons down, before saying that I can't fight. Right? And then in the fifth part, he starts giving lot of arguments as if he is a man of lot of wisdom, and that too in front of Sri Krishna, right? So let's hear what he's saying. Now the grief affects the intellect. Arjuna begins to justify his emotions using logical, apparently logical arguments. That is what we also do, right? Whenever we are in anxiety or whenever we are at the back foot, we generally try to build certain arguments, right? Whether we are able to substantiate those or no, whether those are right or wrong, but then we start building certain kinds of argument to push our situation, to push our state at that particular point of time. So what all he says that those people, it's like all his relatives, and Bhishma, uh, um, uh, Drona, and all these, for whose sake we earn the wealth, kingdom, are going to die in the battle. And then, what is the point of winning this war? How can we be happy by killing our own people? Right. So again, a symptom of attachment. So he gives this. So there are different shlokas here. I have not given the shloka reference here, but this evolves into different shlokas here. Then he says killing relatives is sinful. Right. So he again, you look at here. So he's forgotten his dharma. As a Kshatriya, his dharma was to kill the adharmis, but then he is, just remembering this relatives part. Overpowered by greed, Duryodhana and his people. So what he's saying is, fine, Duryodhana, Kaurava, these people are driven by their greed, by their jealousy and all. That's why they are, not able to understand properly. But we, at least we should able to understand clearly why we are getting into it. Let's try to do a reconciliation again. Let's not get into the fight. So delusion, moha again. And then he gives a complete cycle here. What he says is, war will lead to the large scale destruction, not only on the Kaurava side, but on the Pandava side also. So the ancient wisdom and the ethos of lineage. So entire parampara, the lineage will be lost. Then adharma will creep into the families. Women of such families will get corrupt because they will intermingle with other varnas and all that, right? So social framework will be upset. Then the ancestral rights will not happen, and the forefathers will fall because that pitra and all that rituals will not happen. And this will put both the families in hell, not only the slayers or the killers of the families, right? So it's all, he builds up the entire chain of events in front of Krishna with that shoka state of his mind. And that moha causes Arjuna to misinterpret his swadharma. The righteous war, the dharma yuddha undertaken to uphold justice, after all peaceful means had failed, now appears to him as sinful, as we see in this statement, right? Killing relatives is sinful. So swadharma is another important term that we will see in detail, right? Sri Krishna ji has used almost 4 or 5 shlokas to cover this swadharma and paradharma. Very beautiful concept. We all can correlate with our day-to-day life also, right? And with that, he goes to the wrong judgment and finally concludes that I shall not fight, and drops his bows and sits down. Right? So see the entire chain: raga, shoka, moha, wrong judgment, wrong decision, and all that. Okay. So this is all the progression of his mental state. And this is what constitutes the samsara, our birth death cycle, the raga, the shoka, the moha, all together. We keep on undergoing this cycle. And every birth, we go through this cycle, not ever able to overcome. And then again, we take rebirth. We again start with the same cycle and all that. So entire idea here is entire idea of yogic philosophy, Bhagavad Gita philosophy is to somehow get over this cycle. So a person may be a king, a scholar, monk, householder, warrior, whatever he is. Yet, if these three dominate the mind, they remain bound by samsara, by the birth, death cycle. Right? So this is the beginning, and in a way we have read the Arjuna's mind here, right? And just try to correlate with our own life, day-to-day life also. So, any question here, Kamla? No? So moving forward. Okay, so we have seen Arjuna's state of mind. Now let's see the Dhritarashtra also. So in a way, I have already told him, but let's look, how he phrases his question. So this is the very first verse of the Bhagavad Gita. What does Dhritarashtra say to Sanjay? Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsavaha mamakaha pandavaschaiva kim kurvat Sanjaya. So mamakaha, right? He's using the word mamakas. So what, mamaka meaning my sons versus Pandavas. So what was his role? He was a king, right? He was an elder in the family. He should not be taking the side, but he is starting his sentence with this discrimination in a negative discrimination itself. My son versus Pandavas. So this mine versus others, and this is the root. This is the root attachment right from the beginning that has led to this, the Kurukshetra war. What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? This is his question. So, what is his psychological state? Emotional. I mean, physically, yes, he was blind. But then there are many examples which show that not only physically, he was completely emotionally blind as well. Attachment to own family over justice, knows what is right, but cannot support it. I mean, he was a very learned person. He very well knew what is dharma, what is adharma, but he didn't try to support that dharma. He just went by all the dharma that Duryodhan or Shakuni particularly uh, doing, were doing. Fear of losing power. So hope that somehow his sons will still win. So internally he was kind of aware that it will be very difficult for us to win, but then he was somehow hoping for the impossible. And physical blindness symbolizes spiritual blindness also. Cannot see dharma, he only sees my family. So this is in a way, the psychological state of Dhananjay. Right? So this is also important to understand because there can be a small question around this. Then let's see the Sanjay also. So it's like a witness mind, right? So though we saw that misconceptions also, whether he was actually in the battlefield or whether he was sitting with Dhritarashtra, so just forget about that. But look at just this analogy that he was not in a way either on the Pandava side, though he was representing Kaurva, he was in their court. So in a way, he was representing Kaurva, but then from this war perspective, he was not on any of this side. He was just a witness. He was just a reporter, just like a news reporter. Right? He was blessed with Divya Drishti, and then he was reporting to Duryodhan. So no attachment, but the way he was describing the events, that indicated that his mind, his heart was towards the Pandavas. So when he was describing Pandavas related army or things, he was going into some more details. Whereas when he was describing Kauravas, he was just being very brief. Right? So, but theoretically, he didn't had any attachment. So his psychological state is like calm, objective, emotionally balanced, and observer without reaction. And that is what is taught by all our yogic philosophy, the Sakshi Bhava, right? Always have that sakshi, witness attitude, witness consciousness, right? So this Sanjaya, that can be correlated with that witness mind, the witnessing consciousness, the sakshi bhava. Now, finally, let's look at Duryodhana's mind, Duryodhana's psychological state, and with that, we will conclude the first chapter. So, what is his psychological state? He is like an insecure ego. So, right from the childhood itself, he was hardly able to win anything against Pandavas, right? And he was always driven by that particularly Bhima. He was the particular, opponent for him always. And in the war also, many things that he was doing in the beginning or saying were clearly indicating that. So let's look at that. So he immediately noticed the strength of the Pandavas army and he rushed to Drona to get some kind of reassurance from him, from Drona. And he started listing all the warriors on the Pandavas side. Bhima, Arjuna, Draupad, Satyaki, all these people. So, and psychologically, he was doing a comparison there. And that itself indicates that he was insecure. And somewhere he was realizing that his army was weak. And this is despite he has had the entire army of the elite army of Krishna also on his side. Right? And while describing both the sides to Drona, he listed many warriors from the Pandavas side. He could think of the strength of those people, but he could think of very few, just the 7 from the Kauravas side. So again, an indication of insecurity. And then he was using many negative words while describing his own side, given up their lives for me and all that. Right? So again, some negative indications. And while he was describing the army of his own, he used the word Bhishma because he was the commander in chief, Senapati. But when he was describing the army of Pandava, he instead, the Drashtadyumna and Arjuna, they were the leaders of their army. They were the Senapati of their army, not Bhima. But his focus was on Bhima. He took the name of Bhima. So that again indicates how afraid he was with Bhima. Right? And to Drona, he refers to a particular name, Drupada, because they have had this past history among themselves. So in a way, he tried to, again rekindle that rivalry in the mind of Drona to manipulate his teacher. Right. So all negative tendencies, negative thoughts he has had. So what was his psychological state? Too much of jealousy, too much of greed, lobha, too much of ego, fear of losing, constant comparison, all that, right? Completely driven by negative tendencies. Because somewhere deep within, he was aware that, he's not right. Whatever he has done is wrong. That was his subconscious. And all these, whatever we are seeing, jealousy, greed, all these are somewhere the manifestations or symptoms of his that deep hidden uh, realization. So outward confidence, but inner insecurity. And exactly like many successful people today. Many people do that today, right? Outwardly, they will show huge confidence, but inner side is quite weak. They are struggling and all that, right? So this is what it is. So this first chapter is all about, the setting up of the field. And let's see in the next slide, that analogy. So the first chapter is not merely introducing characters, it is also about introducing our daily life battles. Right? So what are opposite armies? On one side, we have our spiritual goals, and on the other, opposite negative tendencies, right? That is what is the significance or analogy of the opposing armies. What does conscious represent? Our inner vibrations or chatter during meditation, or all the distractions basically from which are taking away from our goal. Right? Those are the conscious. They may have some other positive significance also, but here we are just focusing on this. Then observing the opposing armies, so observing our negative tendencies, right? And then deciding not to fight and giving up a spiritual goal. So generally what happens? So this avidya, the ignorance, this is the strongest or the root of all other kleshas or all our downfall or all other sanskaras, vasanas, desires, right? Because we are not able to discriminate between what is sat, what is asat, what is real, what is unreal. And this is what happens with us, that negative tendencies generally, in the beginning itself, take over our mind, our intellect, and then we give up. We don't move forward in the direction of our goal. So that's what is happening with Arjuna also. Just with that immediate observation, getting into the shoka, and then he gives up his goal. So then it's like there are two beautiful terms used in our scriptures, that is prayers and shreyas. So this is from Kathopanishad. So prayers is something, that is what we are generally tending to. We always try to pick up something which gives us immediate gain, even though we are aware that, in the long run, it is going to give me a pain, right? Instant gratification, like junk food. I like it very much, so I'll eat that, just to have that taste right now. In the long run, I know, it is going to cause issues in my health. But I'm happy because right now it is giving me an instant gratification. And Shreyas is opposite to that. Immediate pain, but long term, sorry, it is gain. I mean, this is not pain, this is gain here. So read it correctly. I'll correct that later. So Shreyas is immediate pain, long term gain, right? So it's like eating nutritional food or something of which we don't like the taste. So initially we have to make some struggle, or we want to attain some long-term goal. So for that, initially we have to make some struggle, some efforts and give up certain things. But in the long run, we are going to get that gain. We are going to achieve that goal. So that is what. So Arjuna is driven by this prayers at present. And once he surrenders, then he is opening that path of Shreyas. So he is asking Krishna to show him the path of Shreyas, using which he can actually move forward on the path of his goals. Right? And what is the cause of all this? That is self-ignorance. So we wrongly understand our true nature, that is avidya. We have too much identification with body and mind. Because all our body, mind, sense, they have a limited capacities, right? And we are not able to. That adequacy, we try to complete or become adequate through external situations